Uh-oh, I guess that means we need to get started.
No, you're fine, take your time.
No. They had cookies for staff today. You had to come in the daytime.
Spoiled this.
Best of.
We will start in just a moment. Is everybody here? Do we have Jennifer?
She's online.
Great, okay, I will call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Chairperson Montague,
Here,
Commissioners Clark,
Here.
Oyster, here, Lisk,
Here.
Mayor,
Fire.
Meyer, sorry.
Here.
Nelson. I did that before.
Christine.
Nelson.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes.
And Petroselli.
Present.
Thanks.
Sorry, Russ.
Okay, here we are. The first item is a public hearing. Let's make sure I'm on the right agenda because that would be embarrassing. I am. Ordinance 01-2025 regarding text amendments to the Ridgway Municipal Code subsection 7-4-6N, short-term rental regulations, section 8-5, short-term rentals, and section 7-9-2, general definitions related to short-term rentals in Ridgway. I will turn this over to Angie to tell us what's going on.
Thank you. So at the last meeting, your commission found that the text amendment approval criteria were met, and recommended approval to town council for 746N and 85 regarding short-term rentals. Between the time that we added the items to the town council agenda and when the meeting was held, we discovered that we needed a definition for owner occupied. It was missing from our code completely. So our review with town council was intended to be a first reading of the ordinance. However, we had to modify the ordinance to include the definition for owner occupied. So our recommendation was then to get the item sent back to the planning commission for your review. And since we anticipated the action, we were able to meet the public noticing requirements ahead of this meeting. So as a reminder, this is a public hearing item, and the process is on the screen if you need a reminder. I won't do too much of a recap because all of this material was covered in your packet, and then we also went over it at length in our last meeting, which was January 28th. For anyone who's curious, it's recorded. But we did some reorganizing and clarifying through chapters 7 and 8. Where it discusses short-term rental. The substantive changes included that the downtown service zoning district was grouped with general commercial and with historic business zones to allow short-term rentals in multifamily buildings. And then we changed a few things to better align with our updated ADU, accessory dwelling unit regulations, which was what prompted the update in the first place. So these are just the red lines again. Finally, the definition of owner occupied was not included in our code previously, but we do have a definition for owner, which is on the screen. And then we've recommended that owner occupied means at least one owner of a property lives on that property as their primary residence for at least 9 months out of any 12-month period. Staff found that the definition's consistent with how the term's been represented by both the planning commission and town council, and then it's also in line with the way that staff's been interpreting it. So here's the prior actions and dates associated with them, with the item. And then here on the screen are the text amendment approval criteria again. You looked at this last meeting. And finally, staff has come up with this recommended motion that includes that definition.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone on the commission have any questions about this? It seems procedural to me.
Pretty straightforward, just
I don't think there's any new information. We deleted that.
just
Just the
Just the
definition.
definition.
found a problem and fixed it.
Jennifer, you have anything?
I don't, just to recommend it.
Okay, who wants to make a motion?
I move to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance 01-20.
We'll have to see if there's
We need
public.
public.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
I will now open it to public comment. Is there any public that would like to comment on this? Closing public comment. Oh, is there somebody?
Just a newbie.
Okay.
Okay.
We're ready, Ross.
I move to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance 01-2025 that amends the Ridgway Municipal Code subsection 746N, short-term rental regulations, section 8.5, short-term rentals, and 79-2 general definitions, finding that the proposed changes meet the text amendment approval criteria. Second.
Bill seconded. Can I please get a roll call vote because we're not all here in person?
Chairperson Montague,
Yes.
Commissioners Clark,
Aye.
Boister,
Aye.
Lisk,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Nelson,
I,
and Petroselli.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item, a work session. A concept review of a proposed development for Lot 3 PUD of Ridgway Land Company subdivision.
Great, so this subject property is generally located between Highway 550 and Red Cliff Drive, off of Hunter Parkway. I think we're all aware of this property and the impact it could have on town based on how it gets developed. It's close to 9 acres with an existing but untenable PUD overlay. So the proposal contains a 110 room hotel and rooftop restaurant. 10 hotel owned lodging units that are in 2 other buildings that look like townhomes at the top. And then 20 for sale townhomes are also included. The development teams introduced an initial idea of some price points and affordability with those for sale units that I'll let them get into. They are here. The property also has an existing mixed use Remax building, if anybody's familiar with that. And the developer is proposing to set aside some land for future commercial development. It's about 1.5 acres fronting Highway 550. There's a pocket park, a dog park, some various drives and utility easements. I also haven't gained clarity quite yet on whether the pocket park or dog park would be proposed as public amenities or if they're exclusive for the use of the hotel and townhomes. But I'll also let the developers cover that. So the property is zoned general commercial. And then the future land use map and our master plan classifies this area as mixed use business. Some of the primary uses under mixed use business include retail stores, professional offices, commercial services, restaurants. And then supporting uses are parks and recreational facilities, civic and government facilities, and then high density residential uses. So the staff report contains some of the history of this property. TJ is also online to help with that portion since it's kind of before my time. We've also received 2 public comments today related to this property that were shared to you guys via email. Did everybody get a chance to look? Okay. If you want a hard copy of this, I have one. So let me know and pass it down. Okay. All right. Well. We've got Mike, Adam, John, Chase, from the team here to kind of talk us through it. They can discuss their goals with the property. And we're just looking for some planning commission input to ensure that they align with town goals. So whoever would like to take it away, I have two views of the development, so this one's more limited. Whatever you like.
Thank you. I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
My name's Adam Waldbaum. This Mike is Sarah, John and Chase are local.
I'm sorry, Adam, could you tell me your last name one more time?
It's Waldbaum.
Walter.
Yeah, WALDBEAUM. So hopefully anyone from the team jump in as we go. So we found the site. I've been looking at the site for a long time. I pass it constantly. And so we dug in and we got ourselves a contract, obviously, that we can step out of. And we started playing around with some stuff, and we met informally with Angie and Preston and TJ. And we're aware there's been some difficulties in the past on the site, and we're also aware that it's an important site as you come into town. We get that. I would like to propose and talk a little bit and hopefully come to something, and if not, so be it. We'll move on and look for another site and try and dig in. We like the area very much. I've bought a lot and I'll be here myself. So here's what we have. We know that there was a desire for commercial or some form of impact on this site. And then given the realities that we came into, you know, the population, what can actually be there, what could be, you know, we can't put a Home Depot there for the obvious, et cetera, et cetera. And so in these meetings, we found out what the town had wanted or would like to see. And this is the best we've been able to come up with that consideration. And the intent is that you let us know if you see anything here that's viable or workable, or if not, you know, so be it. But we did get the hotel, which is a Hilton, you know, operator. And they requested to have a restaurant open to the public. So we have that piece. And they also had a number of larger units. I think it's more than a suite. You know, you go to a hotel, sometimes they have a suite with 2 or 3 rooms in it. This is what they were trying to achieve, kind of an extended stay, but they're owned and operated and part of the hotel itself. Then we had diminished the initial intent to, you know, understanding the concern, and we'd left the whole front here on 550 for some form of future commercial use. We don't have one at the moment. We don't have anyone with an intent for that. But we understand it's important, and that's the visual as you come into town there. And then in order to make it viable for us, we've got 20 townhomes that we have, and we kind of pushed them towards the back, so they're surrounded by the other development and the new little houses there. Recognizing that the intent was a primary commercial, but at least we could not find another use, like I said, viable at the moment, so we left the land open in an attempt to keep that there. And then we have the hotel, like I said, and these homes. And with the introduction of those homes, it allows us to, you know, purchase the site and primarily leave the front section open for some good future use. And Angie had mentioned the pocket parks and so forth. The intent is that those would be, they're along the path, that they would be available to the public. And without getting into any, you know, details or construction difficulties or the aspects of the easements which make things more difficult, which I think Mike would be better suited to ferret out anything. This is kind of our first shot and trying to see if there's any positive feedback or any changes, like I said, that would make it viable. And just to see what you guys have to say. I didn't want to have a long presentation, you know, but because it's a first shot, and that was our hope. And at that point, I would, I guess, turn it over to any thoughts or whatever you're going to bring our way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone have a question for the applicant?
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're also looking at developing a piece of property down on, Palomino?
No,
No.
No,
Okay.
that's-
I needed to know if I.
possibly a different, not us, no.
Okay.
Yeah, no. And at this point, what we have is a residential lot I purchased unrelated to this, for my family and this project.
Thank you. I'd heard that and I never believe rumors.
No, well, I
So
can tell you
asked-
that rumor is not accurate.
A question on the Hilton aspect. How thorough, was your correspondence with the Hilton people?
So it's an operator, it's,
Right.
they're out of Albuquerque. They've got quite a number of units. Walter Barrera is the gentleman's name. And he approached us. He was looking at a hotel in Montrose that I believe he put on hold, actually. The point of contact was through Chase, actually, not through me. Chase is the local realtor. And he had come up and we've met and he liked the site. There's some limitations because of the the easements and so forth. But he seems like a good operator. I mean, I did some research on him, but I don't know him intimately. Other than he's in good standing with Hilton and he's got quite a number of hotels.
The reason I ask, because I've been on the commission for 20 some odd years. And there've been a number of proposals that ultimately could not find financing. So.
Yeah. No, I know that's a common issue. I get it. It's been a demise of many a project and frustration for all. I mean, I would ask you to ask Chase. I don't know how much Chase knows about him particularly, but he seems funded, ready to go. And he's certainly ready to, or indicating that he'd like to pull the trigger. But further than that, I just don't know.
One of the other reasons I'm asking is because 110 room hotel is essentially equal to the rest of the accommodation in Ridgway, more or less. I mean, there are two sizable other motels that don't equal 110 rooms between the two of them. So you would essentially be doubling the accommodations, which if it just seems interesting and a little risky in terms of thinking that you could get double the number of people who are staying here now. It just seems.
Yeah, at face value,
Yeah.
being non-operator, I don't disagree with you, but this gentleman, Mr. Barrera, seems intent and he seems very comfortable that there's a need, etc. I don't know their analysis methods, but he's digging in and he's adamant and he's not letting go. And he seems really intent and is hopeful it can proceed. The only thing I personally know, and this is just a layman's observation, is I asked the folks at the Mountain Lodge where, we stay when we're in, if I'm not at my folks' house in Sawpit, and he says that they're full. Excuse me, I don't remember, when I say full, I mean, he's obviously low in the winter, higher in the summer, but I had a bit of a conversation and I forget exactly, but the total occupancy rate, they said they were quite comfortable with as a season. And that's anecdotal because it's just what the manager had mentioned and what Mr. Barrera has, indicated. I've never operated a hotel personally, so but on face value, the question is the growth there and we would have to lean on those that are gonna put a lot of money and open it up to, do their due diligence.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that we would have another hotel here at some point. We're always, people love to come here, but they don't always have a place to stay. We do have a lot of campers in the area. The size of this hotel, has he ever been here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because the size of this hotel is just, pardon?
Go ahead.
So I'm just curious if he's considered that this is like the only size to make it financially viable? Is he open to other?
No,
I have, well, it's a
no,
question.
you're good.
No, Pam, that's a excuse the informality of your first name. I'd asked that question and, we'd gone over concepts, which hotel, which name brand, how would you operate?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not within his organization and maybe he should be brought forward to discuss this somewhat, but he seems very comfortable and it's in no one's interest, as the town's, ours, certainly his, if it was a setup for failure, that would be not a good idea.
Right. Okay, and then just, again, this property is not really zoned for this kind of a pattern. Have you considered any other options or is this the only thing you're looking at?
Absolutely. Let's talk about that. So we are completely open to whatever comes our way. There could be something we haven't thought of that's completely viable. But in terms of the site, the limitations because of the easements, the commerciality of it, it's not a word, but Angie and Devin indicated how important that was to be visual as you come in and commercial. So that's how we landed on the hotel, which we thought, without getting into the occupancy discussion, was actually a very good idea and needed. Because in the summer, when we have a lot of family here, we're driving down and staying at the lodge, and we've got caught once or twice. And then, of course, we requested, and he was very much interested in this public restaurant. Again, I know there have been some comments about restaurants' viability and this and that and the other. I'm going to leave that up to Walter to know. I like going to restaurants. I've actually owned a restaurant in the past, but never one that was associated with the hotel. I just have no experience with that. But what percentage of the public comes in? What percentage are you relying upon the guests? These are things I just simply don't know. But they must be bore out because we don't want a failure personally, and that's not where we're going. We're not trying to jam something down here that isn't going to work. And then again, we diminished the housing dramatically to try and kind of understand what Preston and Angie were telling us. And so then we again adjusted it to have the front portion remain for some viable future use. We just don't have it at the moment. If it exists and someone's aware of it, we can incorporate it and discuss it. So we thought by just kind of grandfathering it in there as some future use would be the best we could do for the town and to help our project. And then the 20 units, we really have, under this plan, we have to maintain that to make it viable. We weren't trying to say that's only what we can do, but it's the only viable option we have at the moment. I mean, big box would be difficult. We have population. The way I see it, this is just my layman's perspective, and I fully respect, the town and the global capacity. We've got to get some more housing in and to get some growth that would then lead hopefully to, some of the commercial aspects that we would want to see. But in terms of developing it and putting up the money and paying for it, at least in this decade, this is what we came up with. And please, are no means are we saying it's this or the highway for us, but it would have to be economically viable, or we couldn't accomplish it.
So can we give you some other comments?
Yeah, that's what we'd like.
I think you probably heard from staff, and it sounds like you already scaled back a little bit. This is the last big piece of commercially zoned property in town. And we've had numerous other proposals, and there just seems to be this, well, I'll back up and say, there is no doubt in my mind that we need lodging. We need more lodging in town. We also need more housing, but not at the expense of our last large piece of commercial property in town. And we already gave that feedback to the previous applicant who wanted to develop this lot. And I think that the hotel is way out of scale for the town of Ridgway. Again, we need lodging, but this 3-story, 110 unit hotel down there is just, not only is it out of scale with what's happening in Ridgway, it's not the kind of commercial development that I think the town is anticipating on that lot. And to have the balance of it, other than the reserved future commercial development piece, all in housing, just does not fit with the master plan, doesn't fit with the concept of what town would like to see happen on that lot. So I really appreciate your trying to come up with a plan and an idea that works, but I really think it doesn't really fit, in my view, with what the master plan calls out. The fact that it's the last big piece of commercially zoned property in town. You know, we need, aside from the fact you may have heard the story that there was going to be a city market there back in the 90s. I think the time's finally come where we could use an actual, maybe not a city market, but maybe a natural grocers or something. And that would be a large place for it. I think some people would probably be appalled that I said that, but I think it's true.
I'm not appalled, John. Carry on.
Aghast.
So I just think we've evolved, we've changed, and we've also grown. So while I appreciate your effort, I really think my suggestion would be that you really kind of need to go back to the drawing board and target more on new commercial if you're going to look at this lot. I'd love to see a hotel motel of a scale that's maybe half to 2/3 this size somewhere else in town. Even maybe on one of the other lots in what we've always called Ridgway USA down there. Forget what they're calling it now, but I think it's still Ridgway USA. Ridgway Land Company owned it, although I think Hunter has sold most of the lots, most of the interest. Robert Hunter. Anyway, I'm digressing. I think there's room for lodging in town for sure. There's a need. It's just a matter of scale and a matter of location.
Gotcha. How would we, again, not to be aggressive or argumentative, not the intention if it comes out that way, but I gotta push back to get a vibe. So, you know, we kind of looked, we knew you wanted commercial. And no one's arguing that that's a nice, you know, the corners you come in. But so we went out and got the hotel. Now, my guess is this operator, probably the Hilton, not necessarily this operator, would have a difficulty with a 40, 50 unit hotel. It's not really a boutique type gig. So again, not to say, not to sound jerkish, but that's a difficulty that just from experience, not even in Ridgway, that we're going to find. That at some point there's an economy of their scale that they require for X, Y, Z. So if they believe, and I say they, if they believe it's the 110 is viable, and it may be that they're saying there's an absorption rate, we may only be at 50% occupancy for the next 3 to 5 years. And then we'll achieve that 110. I'm not in his head. I just do know, again, from other development work, that to put up a 30, 40 cute kind of boutique hotel really ends up being a mom and pop operator. Very difficult to find, and typically coming in on the back of something else that failed because they don't have the X million to construct that project. So I think that would be one issue as a thought, if the hotel is a use that you even like on that site. If your vibe is, hey, I just never want to see a hotel there, well, then it doesn't matter how many suites it's going to be, and perhaps they'll find another location. And then I'm not seeing at this time, very open, we know there's some vacancy, we know what's going on in town. Again, I'm speaking for this decade, I'm not suggesting you're not planning for, posterity for the town. I just don't, I have not come up, and we've looked very hard. Obviously, we wanted to all do houses, right? It's easy, boom, 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 but we're trying to accommodate, and because I think you're correct. So what kind of commercial use could we find that would have just the pocket hotel and all these other things, so that it's awesomely perfect? The question is, can we come up with something that meets enough of the criteria that's also economically viable? Or again, you can feel free, Mr. Clark, to just say, take a pass, boys, try find another project. You seem like nice guys. See you next time. But we really like this site, and we're at some point we're going to run into, without a big box, what other smaller kind of commercial aspects can we put on there to make it commercial? And then if you look at the purchase price, you mentioned Mr. Hunter and how long it's been sitting there and that rigidity. There's no commercial use that we need that we found at this moment.
I've got a bunch of questions and a bunch of comments, so you go for it. Russ, you want to go first? No, way. First one, we're obviously focused on this hotel and really should be focused on residential, but the hotel, are these 10 townhouse units part of the 110 unit count?
No, that's not my understanding. Again, can we push back and see if he can reduce? There may be.
I'm fine with the size.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there.
Just should not interrupt, but part of the problem is the height. I mean, if you could do similar number of units in 2 stories, I think that would be a whole lot more amenable in the town.
I'm fine with the height.
I just want
I'm fine with the height. So would these townhouse units be managed out of the hotel lobby?
100%, yes.
Would you be willing to restrict that they never get subdivided from the hotel?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so they would be part of the hotel forever.
That is the concept. That's the way it's being described to us, and we could create a structure whereby that had to be
Right.
permanently affixed.
We would be real good at creating that structure. We do it. So we're all talking about how we feel about this lot. I've, like Bill, had quite a bit of involvement in this lot. And I've always thought of this lot would have been much better as a city market. But it being a large lot, it would be great if we had a clinic there or a hospital. We're probably too small for a hospital, but a regional healthcare clinic instead of 20 townhouses for sale. So I'm in favor of the hotel. I'm in favor of maybe seeing you subdivide this into a 1.5 acre front lot and maybe a back lot of 3 or 4 acres that could be used for a new municipal use. Well, and I've thought of that as a healthcare facility, but it could be a school or a charter school, or it could be something that is not more residential. And then, so that's my take on it. So I like the hotel. I think we need the hotel. I think the occupancy is needed. I have a little bit of knowledge of what's going on in the hotel business in town. I think a 100-unit hotel would work. So, but I would not be in favor of those 10 townhouses that are affiliated with those to ever be allowed to be subdivided or condoed. And my feeling there is this takes the pressure off the short-term rental business in town that we've just spent a year analyzing.
Yeah, interesting. To respond to your, the thing with the clinic and so forth, I get it. I mean, you've got the little clinic in Telluride, and then you've got the regional hospital in Montrose. I can't say I have a lot of experience in knowing how many families or how much population would be required to generate an urgent care or something of that nature. I truly don't. And to be looked into. But the question is then, from our perspective, if we built that structure, what would the rent be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know if that's viable from our side.
But we're not supposed to design your project, but you're asking us to.
I am.
So it'd be really nice to build a 3-story building with a hospital on the first floor and doctor's office with maybe apartments above it on one of these lots.
I concur, I just am not sure.
The hospital's not here, so
But-
it's a cash flow issue for you.
From our perspective to develop the site, we have to be, the reason we settled on the houses and we wanted some degree of affordability, even though we're not dealing with, public housing. So we thought we had a good price point, and that's what gave us the ability to carve out the hotel and leave the 100 and carve out the 1.5 acre. So we tried to, create a structure where we had the commercial, that we added the hotel, we left the front for commercial, and then that left us flat. So we needed some form of use to make it viable, and we settled on the housing.
Also, it's gonna be a tough sale with this building.
I'm not arguing that, I'm just, we're having it's kind of turned into a discussion more than a formal presentation. So that I'm just, I'm not disagreeing, I just don't know.
I don't see how the townhomes could be viable at 120% of AMI.
Well, we've figured out what we would be able to sell those homes for after the cost of construction. I mean, less any bizarro that occurred with lumber or steel or something going forward. And
Right, so I'm questioning that you would ever be able to build anything and sell it at 120% of AMI. That's pretty low.
Yes, we're aware of that. I mean, we've done our, I would turn more of that to Mike on the construction aspect of it. But yeah, we worked on that. That was a concern. And the package we have at the moment with the hotel and so forth. Then and then not building homes on that other 1.5 acres, which I think, I understand, if not agree. That left us with this number in the back that made it viable.
Well, if you did the hotel and didn't do the 20 units for sale and left the 1.5 acres on the front, just in size and shape, you got about 4 acres there that would be available for a nice hospital.
I'm agreeing with you, especially if I needed that.
We're never gonna have a-
But there, again, getting into that, there's some limitations because of the population. The city market would have been wonderful, but then there they are now in Montrose, and they're not ready to.
That's the Ridgway City Market.
Yes, the one I'm speaking of in Montrose. Yeah, there's 2 there now, obviously. So the second one, yeah, we know.
We call them.
They had requested that. We tentatively looked into that again. It's not happening at this time. In 20 years, are they gonna review it? I can't speak to that. So yeah, that's the rub. If the feeling is under no circumstances housing, well, then so be it. We're open to anything. But even if we built a medical facility, it's just not population for that. If we built a dentist office, would we draw from the dentist in the Rio Grande building? It's tough because of the size and nature, of the town. So if nothing else, you at least see we made every attempt, even if we failed, to listen to staff and to attempt to give you the most of what was desired on the site. And we settled on those 20 just to make it viable. It's not that we're just gung-ho only to build townhomes.
Well, we're a town of 1,100 people and it's a big commercial development. It's tough.
Yeah, I get it. And then the easements create some issues there. But at least we did, and then Mr. Clark, to answer your question, yes, on the height. The issue on the height was then taking away from the 1.5 acres that was requested, or that staff indicated, we really got to try and have some commercial on 550. It's desirable. So we played with that somewhat. And that's kind of how the operator fell onto the 3 stories, was because we were minimizing the pad that he had to not just create parking and expand the building because it wasn't three stories, like it or not, but that's kind of, what was the feeling there.
I'm not seeing how you would get to the future commercial development.
Well,
And you just said something that kind of, if I just can jump in, it's along 550 is irrelevant. There's no access from 550. So it's not really about that it's along 550. It just needs to be, the majority of this lot needs to be available for commercial at some point. We're fully aware that the market may not be there for a lot of different commercial ventures right now. But if we give up our last big piece of commercially zoned property to housing, and then by 10, 15 years down the road, there's an uptick in need for commercial, where are we gonna put it? So that's the issue that I think we keep bumping up against.
Yeah,
I'm 100% agreement.
Yeah, we concur and that it is an important piece, and there it sits in the location it sits.
So I mean, the crux of it for me is that it sounds to me like what makes the hotel viable, and I can go back and forth on the hotel, we need lodging.
Yeah.
But if what makes it viable is the residential, then it's a no deal, because we don't want residential on the balance of that lot. It's just not the place to put residential right now.
I'm hearing it, yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
I mean,
So
I'm just trying to be frank.
No, but be frank, I mean, we
Yeah.
get it, come on, I mean, we're not,
If you
don't win
put
everything, but
residential above commercial, you might could sell
Mixed use,
considered
it.
that.
I could sell
Strongly considered that. The problem is, and I'm not asking for it, don't take this the wrong way, unless there's some municipal contribution or so, I'm not asking for it, or some other thing. At this moment, what retail is available to go on the first floor? And so it would just.
I hear you.
We'd lose money. You know?
I hear you.
We
It's-
don't disagree.
You're in
We're
a
not
tough
arguing
spot.
with you.
So the question, I guess, in the end, after hearing and understanding, and hopefully you have a good, positive feel for us, is if we can find something that works, that's economic, and we're not big pigs, if we can find something that's economically viable and hits the majority of what we're looking for, the hotels and carved out retail, we would have something to possibly accomplish. But the option right now of retail on the first and res on the up, just it isn't there.
And then
Today.
retail could be office or any type of use. I mean, I think retail's tough in that location on the first floor, but any type of commercial use. And if this, I want to be straight here, but if you need to sell 20 homes to make this financially viable, it's gonna be a tough sell.
Oh, and so be it. And then just to hit back on that, we're open to options, but we're just not. You mentioned office. Office is great, right? It's easy use. Retail is an odd bird these days, right? But what office can we achieve right now? We have a dentist. I actually spoke the other day to an eye doctor there just to query and look. I fear that vacant space would look beautiful and the upper residential would be there and wonderful, but whoever owned that would kind of be bumming out, and maybe for a long time.
I
You
didn't,
can see some more retail that's available just in the last, within the last 2 months, and it hurts me, it bums me out, but I see it,
Farmers market.
Okay,
yeah, it's
yes.
definitely a tough market for commercial in this town right
No
now.
doubt.
So
So a couple of us, we all agree that we need more lodging here.
Yeah,
But the two things that we need in the town are a grocery store and a urgent care. I have a very long career in healthcare, and I can tell you that an urgent care would do really well here.
yeah.
We have a family practice. We have a couple of dentists. We have nothing for urgent care. And it doesn't have to be a hospital. Nobody's expecting a town of 12, a county of 5,000 people to have a hospital. But I guarantee you an urgent care would go really well here.
I said hospital and better. I mean.
Yeah, I know, obviously, you're not gonna put another
Even
regional
medical
hospital.
offices, chiropractor.
No, we don't need a hospital, but we have anybody that needs more than a Band-Aid or a splint has to drive 25 miles.
Correct.
Anybody that's having a heart attack in Uray has, a 35.
Stroke, et cetera, yeah.
And yeah,
No, I'm with you, and we're not opposed by any stretch as developers. However, if we put up that structure, if we found the operator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I don't know. So I don't want to make a blanket statement. I don't know what they would pay in rent, what they would.
and I don't expect you to. I'm
Yeah,
just letting you know that and a larger scale grocery than what we have.
yeah.
I guarantee you, ask anybody in this room or any other place you visited, every 2 weeks, We drive to Montrose and go get our groceries.
I go with my folks, believe me,
Yeah.
it's the Montrose and the
Yeah.
Home Depot run and again, now we're getting into issues I don't know specifically, but how many residents does the town require in order for us to easily start looking at some of these other commercial?
But yeah, I don't need to.
And that's just not even the commercial viability. So again, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Clark. If the answer is just, gentlemen, we don't care who you are, no matter what, we can't put any housing. And by the way, the reason we picked the housing there, I'm not negating the last big piece there, is because you've got the condos directly behind it, and you've got the new homes on Red Cliff. So we were attempting to put the commercial around the front and just make it even economically viable by doing the homes just to pencil it out. There was no, like I said earlier, there was no, we gotta do homes or no matter what. That was
Yeah,
not.
no, I appreciate that. I live back there. My question for Angie, speaking of egress and everything. We've got kids, school buses and the like on this road. Is Red Cliff even capable of ever handling this much traffic? Because knowing that there's blank empty space still
Yeah.
back there to be developed.
A project of this scale would require a traffic study, so I don't know, but a traffic engineer should look at something of this scale.
I'm
And
concerned about the
CDOT
traffic.
would of course look at it.
If all the traffic comes off Hunter Parkway, that's fine. But as soon as it enters Red Cliff Drive, it's all residential, it's kids on bicycles, it's kids going to the bus every morning and afternoon.
Yeah, the current plan, which again, even if it was viable and even if we accepted the residential, that would not be too complicated. There's one exit there, onto Red Cliff, but.
You've got
You're-
4 entrances into Red Cliff.
I was speaking of the res, you're correct. I was speaking of the residential
Yeah.
portion, the hotel. I don't know the answer if they could have a wider entry and limit the intakes.
Yeah, it was just on Hunter Parkway. that feature.
Since she's talking about traffic, I'm having trouble reading this plan. Michelle's having trouble reading this plan. I have some questions, physical questions about the plan. So I see a new road that comes in through the 20 townhouses, then comes up through the townhouses that are part of the hotel. Does that road go south, east through behind the Remax or not? There's a bunch of easements there, and I assume that was a road, and now explaining it to Michelle, I'm not sure that really is a road. So does that road go southeast, or does it just loop around the proposed residential
It just
hotel
goes
townhouses?
It just, it
It just
doesn't,
loops there?
it doesn't, it just.
It's a little hard to see after 14.
Yeah, you have to, with all the markings on the drawing, but it just comes through the townhouse.
Okay,
Piece of back.
so there's not a boulevard or a road that goes behind the Remax? Okay.
And the seller, who I think some of you gentlemen probably know, he requested that he maintain ownership of that Remax building outside our purchase agreement. So we, like I said, we really put a lot of effort into this. We were aware from the beginning, because we had terrific conversations. Your staff terrific, by the way. And they kind of led us to know, and we still decided to proceed and come here and make the effort with as much of it being commercial as possible, plus the housing, including carrying that additional 1.5 acres at our cost till whenever. But at this moment, what makes it viable for us at this moment, and we're not fixed crazies, it is the introduction of the 20 units to cover the cost of the land functionally and to make it happen.
Does the applicant get a copy of the letters from the public?
Yeah, I
Because I
shared
think
them beforehand.
It's a good summary.
I've read them both, and there were some good points, but there was also a lot of NIMBY in there. I don't know how we could accommodate making the hotel or any other homes we have compliant with the HOA regulations.
I wasn't referring to that letter. I
And
was
then
referring to the other letter.
the other gentleman also had some good points, but I understand what he's saying. He was discussing the viability of the restaurants and things that have happened in the past, failures, et cetera, et cetera. And some of those failures could not have been operational. They could well have been the number of people, the structure of the town, et cetera. I'm leaning on the hotel operator in this case to know these things. Again, I've had an Asian fusion restaurant that's very different than what he was proposing.
No, it's,
Terrific point. I just don't, I can't know that.
yeah, 3 stories plus a rooftop restaurant. I mean, that's just enormous. We've already, sorry.
Yeah, no, like I said,
Done.
my first thought was I didn't want it to be 3 stories. I didn't want the view cut, for our proposed homes, et cetera, but then we bumped into trying to keep that 1.5 acres up front for future commercial. You know, that's, and then can only pay so much for X piece of land, and it just, you know how these things go, but that seemed to be what was penciling out now.
Do you need any other input from us? We didn't hear from Russ, did we?
We did not expect a walk in the
Already
park,
asked Ross.
so, yeah, please.
Ask for us to go first.
All the input, either sends us packing or at least gives us information to see what we can do.
Do you want to add anything?
I really don't have anything to add that hadn't already been said. But just real quick, I think the hotel's a little too big, too much residential, and the primary intent of what we'd like to see this be is more commercial. And so how to make those numbers work is not what I'm familiar with and not our job, but that's kind of our input on where we think this is at, so.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Totally respect that. If the housing was cut out, just full stop, this particular plan just doesn't work, this particular plan. I don't know where that leaves us, I say us, I'm not, you know, going forward, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if Mr. Hunter would sell less of the land or charge less for the land, we could, you know, expand the hotel to 2 levels and keep it vacant while we looked for additional growth in order to accommodate a commercial use. And that would be longer than we would have the capacity to hold that land. You know, that could be a decade, 15 years. We just personally would have to step out on that at that point, just.
Well, it's been there 30.
It could, I don't want, you know, my opinion is stuff, to be honest, it's really difficult because you want that corner to be a visual as you come into town. It's more important from I'm speaking just for myself here, we're off the record on my proposal. It's very difficult to make that work. What we attempted to do was keep the full visual and keep the full piece on 550 as the commercial. The hotel, we could argue a little bit about how many stories, see if we can spread out somewhat. But again, the more you spread that hotel, the more you're taking from the balance of the availability of the commercial. And without an emergency room or without the need for 2 more doctor's offices and 3 more dentists, et cetera, how many years would that sit? And then again, we would have nothing, we would just have to step out, you know, the carry cost.
The problem with that lot is it's really something that's just gotta sit in somebody's back pocket, whether it's Rob Hunter or
Yeah.
who, for some time before there's a desire and need for the actual commercial development to happen.
And
But
that,
we're not willing to let
Correct.
go of that zoning.
Yeah.
For fear of not having it down the road. I
full
mean,
respect.
it's a difficult situation, and that's.
Yeah. And then that's why we attempted to keep the visual impact as you come in and out of town and so forth. Being the commercial, and I also initially tried to get the Remax, but that's not gonna happen.
Let me bring something up here. When I look at this, doing my homework, I assume that this is a road coming in. If the access to this commercial is through that residential, it's gonna be tough sell. So
There's no
Yeah, the access
no
point has
commercial
been
gonna go through that residential. Her urgent care is not gonna wanna do that.
We're in agreement, I think, up here anyway, that the residential just doesn't.
Yeah.
I think we're repeating ourselves
Yeah, they didn't.
ad infinitum.
We are kind of doing that, and I was just looking kind of at the rest of the undeveloped parcels down there, and I don't know who owns what, but there's a big vacant number of parcels. There's 2 or 3 parcels that are directly south of the existing lodge, the Mount Lodge. And another lodging right next to that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Also further, across the street and at the foot of Vista Terrace. Now, I know that's in the midst of residential, but, for a lodging hotel motel, that might not be a bad spot for it. I just think lot 3 it just presents too many challenges in the immediate future for anyone to develop anytime soon.
It's something that the town feels should land bank until the appropriate, not land bank publicly,
Yeah,
but.
I mean,
Right.
functionally,
Mr. Hunter,
but yeah, it's just, we need to hold on to that zone.
It's a long-term development site.
It's a long-term development.
I think that site's more important to us as a town and as a board than it is probably to the seller.
I can concur, yes, without a doubt.
That's not hard to imagine.
Yeah, and again, I at least see, we made every effort to accommodate, and that the housing was in the back, out of view, surrounded by the other, and its intent was to make the project viable.
Understood.
So without that, then it reverts back to the long-term hold, however that term hold may be, and until some other use pops up that's viable there and acceptable. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for the ability to have a nice, normal conversation.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation.
Likewise, thank
Yeah.
you.
We appreciate your efforts. It's a
No,
tough issue.
and we don't intend to abandon town.
Come back and see us.
But this one is, we got your. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else on that?
Anybody in the audience have a comment?
I don't think so.
Are you gonna allow us to speak on it?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think-
Absolutely.
I just had a couple
What's the
of
work
comments.
session?
Pam Craft, 32-year resident of the town. As I was listening to everything, I had a couple things that came forward. One, commercial. I feel that the commercial needs in town are much smaller in scale than something in that capacity. What locals are looking for and need are small storefronts, places that they can have their ongoing livelihoods. So that was the one thing I was thinking about commercial. And then the other, my personal concern is water and wastewater services, to provide something of this size instead of using it for housing for members of our community. So those are the two things that I was thinking. Thanks.
You want to elaborate on that last comment?
I feel that it's something of this size and this magnitude, we should be looking at what our water and wastewater facilities can provide and maintain. That's all, I'll bring in a lot in to the town for what we currently have.
And isn't a pump station required from across the highway to get to them?
There's already.
It's already there.
But
But
it's-
I mean, even
Fast.
processing things through our current wastewater system and providing what we have at our water treatment plant. I mean, I'm not an expert on any of that, but I would say that's probably something we would need to look at.
Infrastructure, it would certainly be
Thank you.
You're welcome.
an issue.
Anyone else want to comment on this?
Anybody online?
Yeah, this is Jennifer. I just wanted to mention on top of what Pam said is, I wanted to see more business there. And the hotel was, we need lodging, but I would like to see the employees that are working at that lodge to be living here, not coming from some other place, not from Montrose. So it's important to me to see that commercial is hiring people from Ridgway and that people can work there. That's it.
Thank you. All right, I think we're going to move to the next item. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your efforts.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to say something. I really appreciate staff doing it this way, because in the past, it's always been they come in with a preliminary plat, and we don't like it. I like the way that staff handled this.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, there's not like a real process in our code for.
I think there probably should be.
Right now, but, we thought that it was kind of important for this particular property.
Well done.
Thank you, Angie.
And TJ gave me a lot of really good background, so I impressed him, so.
Sometimes as the commission, we kind of go down a rabbit hole. It's not really our place to talk about the viability of the business. We were just being asked to look at the design.
Understood.
And if I can just, before we move on, just say, I think Pam made a really good point about the commercial needs and, you know, while I still think lot 3 is the last big piece of commercial that we have available and we should hang on to it, we need to be thinking more about ways that we can provide smaller scale commercial opportunity in town because it's really tricky.
I think we're right on with that. It's just impossible going 9 acre piece or an 8 acre piece, whatever that is. It's all bad.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that I think that the reason we're holding on to that philosophically is that someday we will get big enough to have a more viable market and an urgent care facility and that kind of thing. It's just, we're not there yet.
No.
But aside from that, the bigger picture is that we need to be thinking and planning, and it's part of the discussions that we're diving in on, like the master plan and stuff, is where are we gonna put future small scale mom and pop type retail commercial businesses, and right now it's tough.
HB, hopefully.
Yeah, but and then, you know, I think
Well,
the
the ones
downtown,
we have aren't hanging on, are barely hanging on. So
yeah,
it's not, it seems like we also mentioned the fact that maybe not, it's not time yet. And he addressed the fact that if you build this commercial rental space, it's going to be sitting empty probably for some time. Because the stuff we have isn't even occupied.
Yeah, I think I can say this public, I'm in the process of doing a occupancy or a vacancy study on the commercial buildings in Ridgway, and every major building in Ridgway has a significant vacancy. Every year. So
The problem is they can't afford the rent.
I don't want to say too much, but in the taxes on a commercial building in Ridgway are 3 times the taxes on a residential building. So it's real burdensome on these commercial developments to keep their rents low. And so I've been here 32 years like Pam, maybe 33, and the vacancy here today is higher than I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
disagreeing.
I just noticed it and said, I need to check into this.
I also referenced this letter that I thought really hit a lot of the things that we were talking about, and it was kind of dismissed by the applicant, but you know, at the end here, he says a collaborative process where the town landowners and applicants like get together and come up with a plan. As opposed to people coming in with some idea they thought up and we're going, no, you know,
Yeah,
come
no,
up
I
with
agree.
some kind of
Well, that was
process.
actually suggested on the last plan. He
Right, it was.
said, go talk to the town and see what they need.
Yeah, and that,
Obviously, that message didn't get passed on.
right, and I just thought he put it really well in this letter. I don't know that I agree with every point, but I think he made really good ones, and when I mentioned the applicant, he was kind of like, oh yeah, well, that doesn't work for you. I'm like, okay. Okay.
And I think we've been really good about saying what we do need. You know, agreed, everybody said, we're not here to write your business plan, but we're telling you what we need for the community.
Well, and even the landowner could come and have that conversation, right, before he tries to sell it to some
That's-
unsuspecting.
that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, but he's not.
Anyways, I think I've said enough on
We've
that.
done this dance before.
Yeah, so anyway, maybe we'll do it again.
But what Jack said was, it was helpful to do it now and not have them invest huge amounts of time and resources.
Definitely.
Item 3 on the agenda is affordable housing work session,
Oh, yeah,
part 3 staff memo. That's what it says in the RE. Says part 3 staff memo. I'm like, okay,
That's your subject
Well-
line.
yeah. I'm reading your subject line.
Affordable housing,
Okay,
okay.
well, my bad about that, typo.
Sorry.
We're here for calling me out.
We're here with you. It wasn't intentional.
Pressure,
I
that's.
was
that's
just
what we're
reading it
referring to.
and I was like, that's curious. I guess I'm supposed to say that. So I said it.
We're totally here with you, don't worry.
All right, well, anyways, it is the staff memo for that item, so I guess it does make sense. All right, so yeah, this is kind of our third housing work session. I know you guys have talked about housing quite a bit. And we've reviewed quite a lot of information and done some really good visioning and refining of the topic.
So we're ready to approve it?
We are looking at continuing the revisions on this 7.7 and the guidelines. And then we'd like to do some community outreach, some input and outreach event here probably. We haven't finalized that exactly, but could be late March.
When you say we would like to do community outreach, you mean staff would like to?
Yeah, it'll be a staff process. So I'm just letting you know that we're not ready to adopt this quite yet. It still needs some review. We would, put it to referral to a variety of developers, probably realtors.
I think late March might work. I think it's gonna be hard to get people, I found it's hard to get people in here. And I don't think April would work, because I think a lot of people leave town.
April, yeah, so
Yeah.
the schools,
As soon as.
their
Steve-
spring break is the last of March, 1st of May, April, And anybody that works at Telluride.
Yeah.
Is done April 2nd, and then they bail, just.
Yeah, we've been looking at the school schedule to come up
Yeah.
with a date that would be,
Yeah, anybody's
Good.
ski instructor, mountain employee, they leave town.
Yeah.
Early April.
we're keeping all of that in mind as we sort of talk through it and think about it.
Early May.
Yeah, and just, it's hard to know, like, if you wanna move it forward right now, and then, of course, we're talking about looking at it again after we have a housing needs assessment.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking when I was reading the staff report, is we probably are wasting our time until we have the needs assessment to be able to answer questions effectively. I mean, I've just read the Montrose needs assessment. They're extremely detailed. They're real helpful. And I personally think we should have that input before we have the public sessions, because the questions that are going to be brought forth, with the public, we won't have the correct answers for.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
There's a couple things tied to the needs assessment conversation that we'll get into eventually, but I'll just mention them here. DOLA has these new guidelines for how to create a needs assessment. It requires quite a lot. It's a lot more expensive probably than what we budgeted for the year, but they're also working hand in hand with that, offering some funding for housing needs assessments. But those funds won't be available until like middle of the year, I would guess,
If we're lucky.
if we get them. So that's just something to keep in mind, and I don't know how much we wanna kind of push this or
So
fund it.
do we
or-
think about pausing this then? Because we kind of keep coming back and reading the same thing.
I think we should pause until the needs assessment. That's just one vote. That's the way I feel about it.
That's fair. I do wanna look at maybe the 7.7 and the guidelines with you, just to see if you all had any comments, but if you don't have any now, because I know you have a staff report on Friday, it's not a lot of time to review. I'd love written comments on both of those documents, if we don't wanna talk about it today.
I do have a position on the community housing guidelines.
Yeah,
So you laid out that the household must contain at least one person working $1,000 in Ridgway County, blah, blah, blah. But this one here says the household members must not own any other developed residential property in Ridgway County. Where are you restricting that to Ridgway County?
I don't know how we would find out what they own elsewhere unless, I mean, they would have to disclose it, I guess, to us, but, it seems to be a common provision in certain community
Yeah,
housing
this-
standards.
It just seems that somebody can
Sure.
have something out of
Right.
state. You come
Yeah,
in and go,
or
oh,
bring
I'm
them-
poor, and I need to be able to afford it, so. I don't know how to address
Yeah.
that.
It's just, the only reason it's in there really is because it's commonly seen in other guidelines.
Not arguing with it, it
Yeah.
seems limited.
It seems like in most cases, where there's deed restricted affordable housing, that applicant has to show their whole, they have to show their tax returns.
Yeah.
They own the
Yeah.
property.
And if their tax return is from another state,
It's gonna show all their assets, unless they're hiding their assets.
I felt, I had some comments in here, we're gonna do it. The fact, that somebody could not own, undeveloped land in the county. I mean, how would if they own $1 million house in Carbondale or something like that? I thought there should be more of a restriction into what they own before they could qualify here.
I think you guys are saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Essentially.
I'm sorry.
noted.
No worries.
We can strike it, we can modify it, we can do whatever. This is the kind of feedback I'm hoping for from you all.
The other thing is, I read in here and it caught my attention is the exchange for land in the deep, if a developer wanted to give the
land in lieu,
land in lieu, and the statement said, I highlighted it here, but it said it had to be fully developed. And I'm just gonna say it, I've been trying to get a developer to give the town the coffee gravel pit. And the locals here know what that is. And it's not developed, it doesn't have utilities, and he won't put them in. So I think that's a restriction that is limiting the town from receiving a gift. And I don't think it's a viable restriction, in my opinion. Because we love the coffee gravel pit.
noted.
I think that's a good point.
I mean, it's a good idea, I think it's well conceived, but I think it limits us in a way that we don't want to be limited.
I guess there was another concern, and I've looked through this and I can't tell you exactly where it is, but it seemed that there was a limit of 10%.
Yeah.
For developers, and is that really a number we want to run with? I know the PUD number is higher, like 25?
Yep.
Okay, but is 10%, is that adequate? Does that number need to be higher?
I'm comfortable with it. That's kind of what we've always used, and we haven't always achieved it, but and then on top of that, Russ, I believe we're offering incentives to increase it. That'll be pretty, hopefully seductive, and we can do better with the incentives.
Yeah. Better throw a carrot, yeah. More carrots and less sticks.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not happy with the carrots we're offering, but we'll negotiate. I mean, I think we can, I'd really like to make it worthwhile to increase that percentage.
yes.
Are we talking about the
Mhm.
percentage of units being offered as,
Deed restricted community housing?
or are we talking about the 10% profit?
No, I was referring to the first one,
Okay,
yes, not the. Yeah.
I think 10% is the minimum. I've always thought we should have it be more.
Thought we put a bigger number in when we did
UD,
we did.
The PUDs,
25% on the PUDs.
right?
And that's the question I was asking, is if we need to maybe look at 15, 20.
Yeah, I mean, but I think this comes back to, I have a hard time with the profit thing, on how we set the price for a deed restricted unit, because as with Riverfront Village, the deed restricted units down there are gonna be $700,000-800,000, I think. I mean, the sign says 400, but I think we were told it was gonna be more like 7 or 8. And I don't know what it's gonna be, but I think it's tricky to try and figure out, that it talks about.
Well, I think.
It's gonna be more than 120% of
let
the
me jump
AMI.
in here, John. I think that I've been trying to find out the pricing on the Riverfront Village myself today. And it's very elusive. I think the $400,000 you're thinking about is not a deed restricted unit. It's a small little one bedroom that's a free market.
Oh, really?
And I don't know what the deed restricted pricings are. I think you're probably correct that they're multiple bedrooms in larger units and higher pricing.
Okay.
So don't misinterpret that $465,000 number that they're waving around.
I haven't seen it 400, except over in.
Some of their signs, what I've heard, I haven't seen.
Riverfront, cheapest I've seen about 675.
I go by per square foot. The square foot prices are over $600 a foot in that
Yeah.
project.
I don't see how anyone's building anything in 120% AMI, which is what I said, that it's just not even possible.
I mean, and I think from going back and looking at some of our other developments and things that we've done, where we've just said, deed restricted, you need to give us 10%. And then the prices have shot sky high, where this one may not ever hit the ground again running. This one, the Commons over here, this Vista Park is doing it, but they're, you know, for those low numbers, you're getting 600 square feet. You know, it's $400,000 to me is still a lot of money for a 600 square feet. It may be the cost, but the thing is these developers, I don't know, we need to limit them on what they can make, but I think they ought to be able to take more off them, get more out of their market rate stuff in order to provide our deed restricted units. That's something that's attainable. I mean, that was the intent when we first did it. Prices have gone through the roof, and so our 10% deed restricted units aren't coming through as anticipated. And so we need some sort of further controls or regulations to actually make those something that it is attainable. I mean, what's the benefit of having a $700,000 deed restricted unit when you're trying to put people who can't afford to live here? So.
Right, no, I'm with you. I think let them raise the prices on the market rate units in order to pay for the.
Yeah.
So actually losing on like deed restrictions.
So what you're talking about here, and I'm not advocating either way on this, is we're gonna ask the developer to sell the deed restricted units below cost.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
something we've never really talked about.
Yeah.
We've hinted about it, but and that's where we're going.
I think that's what needs to happen.
In my experience, and John might, it's always been cost plus 10% was what we required them to do. And I did the ones at cost.
I think what Michelle's been saying all night is that doesn't make for
No,
a
it doesn't.
restricted unit.
Well, and those guys sitting here saying that they need those houses to make the project viable, and they're gonna come in at 120% of AMI, like, that's not even
It
possible.
doesn't make sense.
I don't even know what they were talking about.
I think
120% of AMI is nothing, so that certainly isn't gonna make their project viable, because they're gonna lose money on it.
I think
It's like, what are you talking about?
I think they were saying is that, I think they were misinformed. And I don't mean, I want to be polite about this, I think they were misinformed. They were saying that their deed restricted requirement would come in 100%, not the whole project. It'd be impossible to do the whole project.
Well, that's what it said on the slide.
Sorry, that's not how they
It's not.
explained it to us. No,
They'll do.
Harry and Mike are affordable housing developers out of Ohio. I don't know what commercial development background they have, so it's,
But you even put
It's kinda
that chart in our packet of the AMI. It's like, you're not building from, maybe you could build for that in Ohio,
Yeah.
but you're not building for that here. That's crazy. It doesn't make any sense, was what I was trying to say, but they couldn't hear me, so I quit saying it. I was like, okay, whatever, this isn't happening anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But it just seemed crazy. It's like,
I mean-
but I need to see the numbers, because that does not add up.
I think this is a big issue. I mean, building costs here are probably $400 a foot or better.
At least, that's minimum. It's like 6.
And that's not including the cost of the property. Well, $400 a square foot to build is the cost, it doesn't include the cost of the property.
Vista Commons was $600 to $700 a square foot.
That includes the property, and I mean,
And all
I've
the infrastructure and everything else. It's
just
not
been a
for
house at
big
Ridgway for
houses.
under $400 a foot to build plus land, so pretty familiar with the cost.
It's-
So, and if you're gonna be doing 20 units, you should get some economy of scale. So I think $400 a unit plus land is generous. I'll bet anybody, Starbucks, that the river building cost.
Who goes there? I do.
I do.
Good friends don't let
that
friends.
is under $400 a foot because of the scale, but then they're selling at 6. That's what it takes. You gotta put the land in there.
So Angie, I'm guessing that larger communities facing these issues are making developers provide workforce housing below cost. And they're making up their money on the market rate.
Right.
Because otherwise, how are they affording?
My guess is nobody wants to
I
say
don't
that,
think that's
right?
legal, but I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
This is the first time I've heard it said here. I mean, we've hinted about it, but it's the first time I've heard it said a
I think
law.
it's the thing you can't say,
Um,
which is why I'm
I mean,
using pencils.
You're asking
right?
the developer to subsidize the affordable housing units.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
That's
don't
what it is, it's a
Absolutely.
subsidy.
We're gonna have to do that.
So
It doesn't work otherwise.
they figure out their own financial pro forma and we can't say
It's their
you need
problem.
to sell those below your cost. Like that seems not.
No, we don't, we said it according to.
No, but
But we have to set an
there are
AMI
ways
or
we can say-
something.
We can assign
So-
AMI values. to
Yeah.
those.
Right,
Yeah, what we're saying is
Yeah.
like asking them to mark up the market rate units to pay for the deed restricted units.
yeah, that's how they make it work on their financial
Yeah.
pro forma.
Yeah,
That's
like
what
Robin
it's
Hood, their business plan is up to them. We're just saying it has to meet, like Russ said.
It has to be a
that's
certain
why-
AMI, that's what we can say, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
we-
we started, let me just remind you how we kind of started and went into this because we are introducing these regs that are an inclusionary zoning policy at a very incremental rate. So that's why we're going with the 10%. That's why we're making it pretty dang easy for people to get into these units. And that's why the 10% profit is alluring to developers. So that it's not just a huge battle to get people on board with this, because inclusionary zoning, if it's not right-sized, can completely chill the market. So we want to be careful of all of that. We don't know, because we don't have a housing needs assessment that's new. We have a regional one from 2011. So there's a lot of considerations that didn't make it into this document, or these two documents that work together. That we're gonna work on. It's just maybe not gonna happen with this. I don't know, this review cycle, I guess, or, you know,
so
this.
do we have plans for a housing need? I know it's in the budget somewhere, but what, do we have a timing, tentative timing on that?
Mid-year, I think I have a, here, let's see.
Okay, and then you were saying that with this new DOLA stuff,
Oh,
those requirements aren't fully there and won't be there till mid-year or a little later or?
DOLA's released all their requirements for the housing needs assessment or their guidelines for how to create a robust housing needs assessment. And they're offering funding to complete housing needs assessments using that guide. The Senate bill is 24174, if anybody's curious. But with them releasing the funding, I think it's gonna be like mid-year, because they just released the kind of parameters around like who could qualify for the money.
And so is it your opinion that the best thing for us to do is to use this DOLA needs assessment and those guidelines in order to make sure that we have the best track forward to get funding for all this and to pay for the additional requirements for the housing assessment?
That would be, that would be what I
That's
would.
your recommend.
Yeah, I feel really sort of slightly uncomfortable with requiring a lot of compliance with, you know, making developers provide affordable housing, without knowing what AMIs we should be targeting, without knowing
Absolutely.
exactly what we need.
Sure.
But that's why I wrote these this way, so that it would be very incremental and not a huge leap for any developer. And we're still capturing some benefit from big developers if any of these projects come in that we're hearing about, we'd still at least capture something in the meantime. So
So this approach is kind of a gap movement until we get that needs assessment done.
yeah, it's sort of just,
Strategic.
yeah, it's
Instead of putting it
capturing
off for
something,
another
it's
year.
making the community comfortable with having something to follow related to providing affordable housing.
Okay.
It's making them comfortable with the idea of a deed restriction and reading about what that could mean. It's making them comfortable with understanding what area median income targets are, and it's sort of like there's like an educational component, but it's also capturing anything that will be coming in the meantime.
That's great.
So that's kind of how this whole timeline has been laid out. So we have early 2025. This is the RMC 77 and guidelines. And we were going to suggest adoption eventually when we get it to its right form. But, you know, it has the incentive component and then it has mandatory compliance as well. So it's getting people just familiar with both of those ideas. And then in early 2026 is when we're looking at actually revising these two documents that we would recommend adoption
Based
for.
off the needs.
Based
assessment.
off the needs assessment. And that's where we would, you know, probably see the 10% increased, probably see the AMIs change a little bit. I can't tell you because I don't really know.
Sure, no, I don't.
But
So
I
here
think
we go.
that's
We have that
great.
crystal
So then
ball.
we get this moving and then we look at it again and revise it. That's,
So this
Perfect.
changes are talking
Yeah.
about table.
yes,
We don't want to table this.
absolutely.
We want-
No, that's great. I thought we were just gonna keep kind of revisiting it until after the needs assessments, but this makes perfect sense.
Okay,
Once again, you're ahead of us, where you're supposed to be.
well, I would welcome any written comments on both of those documents.
Okay.
And we're still going to be revising them a little bit further. And then I do still think that a public outreach component that ties kind of housing together broadly, we can mention the housing needs assessment, the timeline for that. Once we kind of have it established, we can introduce people to Prop 1, 2, 3 if we want, you know, we can talk about anything housing.
I
So
keep
Jody
it
ideas.
simple because I feel like there's not gonna be that many people and some of these developers aren't even here yet. Like that guy that just showed up today, like he wouldn't have been at the meeting because he just got here,
So
you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So it's important to do it, but I don't want you to be terribly disappointed when it's
Yeah.
like this many people in the audience.
So I want to say this publicly. John brought this up. So the rural rich community in Ridgway is so out of touch with what we're doing here as a board that I'm embarrassed by it. But the brokers are trying to sell the land south of the I call it the Super 8 or Northern Lodge as residential development land. And I've seen it in writing and it's not. And I think we can invite them to this.
Exactly.
They're
We
not
would
gonna
do
show-
direct, we would do direct.
The only way they show us with food and alcohol.
Can we make them, can we
I was gonna-
require them to come and to keep
I
their
was gonna
license?
reach out personally, but I don't think I have the stroke to get them here.
I'm gonna see if.
It's embarrassing what they're doing. They just like disregard
Oh,
what
we
we're
can-
talking about.
So,
Often dinner and drinks.
yeah, a couple
Dinner,
things,
drinks.
a couple things. CPS and myself have a lot of experience conducting public outreach events. It's just something that we've had to do with a ton of different communities. And we would be coming in as the consultant, not really knowing what to expect. You know, we kind of look to the towns or whatever communities we're working with to sort of guide that. And because I'm so new, I feel that again, like I would be hoping that you all would put the word out and make
I'll
it
try.
a success.
I'll try.
Instead of just saying, oh, I don't think people are gonna come. We will time it correctly. We will offer snacks. We will do whatever we need to do to make it an inviting event, and we will market it as needed.
Yep.
If we don't get enough input to move it forward, then we will try something different. But I think showing that that's kind of the direction that I'm hoping Ridgway will go, with just connecting with the community a little more on policy changes.
I think
Will
that's
just,
great.
yeah, will just be important moving forward, especially if we're looking at this in early 2026 again and revising it. You know, we're saying this is very incremental, but we're gonna do this public outreach again when the time comes, and then we can
I thought of, maybe we just put it in place and that's usually when everyone goes, oh my God, I can't believe that. And then you can get the public input and then revise it. Right? That's usually when you get people's attention.
I know
don't wanna
some
do it that way.
justification for why it was necessary to put it in place.
Everybody shows up with their pitchforks and shovels, and then we're like, oh, we got your attention.
It's better to
It's
attempt
worked
outreach
before.
in the first place
Yeah.
and then say, if there's pitchforks later, we say, hey.
Look at these
we-
outreach events we did.
We tried to educate them.
I've never heard anybody say they were mad or bummed because we educated them. You know, this town, they pay
I
attention.
agree.
And
If
I
people
think,
don't wanna come, if they read the poster and say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to that,
But
at least
they-
they knew it existed.
Yeah.
and they were included.
They were included.
I think what my point is, the people that are paying attention are not who we need to reach out. The people who are not paying attention are the ones that frighten me. You know, and they're not, trust me, they're not.
Well, yeah, and I guess some direction on your part on who you want here.
I'm
but-
talking, and I'm
Well,
talking about the
and
people
Jack, I
that work
think-
8 to 5.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I was interrupting.
He's talking about developers and realtors. I'm talking about people who work 8 to 5 with 2 kids and are
But-
trying to figure out how to live here.
But Jack's point
Agreed.
is that we need the developers and the realtors at the table and they need to know what's going on, because if they don't know what's going on, then the people you're talking about don't have a chance.
Yes.
Or the people coming in to buy the lot.
That's who
Is
she's
it
talking.
possible to invite ourselves to like the Board of Realtors meeting?
Is there, and I've talked a little bit about that. I'll help any way I can here. But I mean, I got a phone, this is how ridiculous. I got a phone call from a broker who was present here tonight to do a residential development in the industrial park. He said, we want to do housing in the industrial park. I said, are you kidding?
Jack, whenever you get an inquiry like that, you're welcome to direct them to write to me. It's okay.
First, you can say
I
what's
framed
that's
it,
a
so
very good idea.
I forgot.
Did you want to run through this with us?
Um,
I'm sorry that we were like, forget it, let's just not even do it.
No, you've already seen this timeline.
Yeah.
The version of the documents that I gave you is a revision. So there was a couple things we talked about last time that made it in there. If there's something else that sticks out to you that you want to see revised, happy to do it. Maybe put it in an email or
Can you
whatever.
share that
I'll read it again.
with us as well?
In an email?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, it's not.
We always like getting your
Yeah,
presentation.
this is the same one from the last,
We read everything you send us.
Well, and I wasn't in the last meeting, so I didn't.
yeah, okay.
and my iPad wasn't.
So you
Last one.
directed us to look over both of these documents that were included in the packet again and email you with any suggested changes. That's fine. No, I'm okay with that. I wasn't saying
I'll
we can't.
read it,
Yeah.
I'll read it again.
I was just summarizing so everybody got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I might see something like, did, you know, since we've progressed, it's like, oh, I should probably.
I
read
mean,
it
it
again.
gets to a point when you're like writing new regulations, your eyes start crossing and you're wondering if everything's handled and like how other people are reading it.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to point out that we was talking about earlier, there's a paragraph that's like between 16 and 17, page 16 and 17, I think. It starts that there shall be an initial maximum sales price on every deed restricted unit, which should be equal to the cost of acquiring and developing the deed restricted unit, plus not more than 10% profit. Provided, however, that the initial maximum sale price exceeds the maximum purchase price for an AMI threshold stated above for the household of Erie County. The property owner agrees to reduce the profit downward from 10% to an amount to achieve that targeted AMI affordable maximum purchase price, except that in no event will the initial maximum price be reduced to an amount that requires the property owner to achieve less than a 3% profit. So
delete that that last.
The
bit.
3% profit.
Okay, that's
I
totally.
think you
doable.
just make it say it has to be adjusted to an AMI that we set.
Yeah.
And I like, well, I mean, because the pricing, I think all those percentages can evaporate, just say, we're gonna.
You gotta meet
We want
these
our deed
AMI.
restricted to be 120% period
Yeah.
on these units.
That makes sense.
See, that's easier to digest. and
Yeah.
I like Russ's idea on that, and it's easier for us to deal with.
Yeah, and it's not us telling them how they need to subsidize it, it's telling them what it needs to be.
And I don't think we should put 120% in it, because it's probably gonna be 150 pretty quick, so we should keep it flexible.
Well, let's keep in mind, the area median income is the middle number of the incomes, so if it keeps going up,
Well, John and I have talked about it, I mean, I don't know.
We,
Just an idea.
I mean, there would be a hope to provide an array of housing eventually, so I don't think we need to adjust that number. And once we have a housing needs assessment, I think we're gonna be targeting other specific
That's
AMIs.
fine.
Yeah,
It'll
I
reveal-
think that's gonna provide the total clarity on where we go with this. Sure.
That's-
Have that needs
So
assessment
she
done.
got what you're saying to take out that last sentence.
Okay,
Can
Good
you repeat
meeting.
that? You are gonna, do you want that last sentence taken out?
Yes.
I think we just talked about taking out the percentages altogether and just targeting
just
AMI.
targeting AMI.
Just target, I think it's simpler for everybody. Just do it AMI.
Any additional comments on affordable housing? Does anyone have anything else to say about that?
Do you guys in the room have comments, questions?
No.
Just here to learn?
Yeah, we're new in town, so we just
Cool.
wanted to be a part of it and.
Well, thanks for
Thanks.
coming. No, come to our meeting.
We don't have a very big
We
fan club.
appreciate you being.
Yes, events, those are the words too.
See,
Okay, well, like you legally go in people's mailboxes and like.
Can I ask a question about something else?
Sure, sure.
So we're looking to develop the parcel at the corner of South Elizabeth and Sherman. It's downtown service. So it used to be 6 parcels, so we're submitted some stuff. We'll probably see it next month. Like, what's the town looking for in downtown service? Because I mean, in the land use regulation, it's pretty vague. Like, I understand like office, professional offices, residential, right? Is that?
I don't know that we're looking for something in downtown service. We're just allowing something.
Okay,
And,
so I
and,
guess it's residential plus, like maybe mixed use. Like,
yeah,
that's-
the idea was to allow for some limited commercial, not full-blown
No, of course. yeah,
retail.
like,
But certainly like, an artist studio could work,
Chiropractor.
but yeah,
professional offices, accountant, I don't know.
yeah, typically that kind of thing.
Low, our concern that's gonna be.
Low volume,
Yeah.
offices. Not low.
Yeah, like an 8 to 5, they come in, 3, 4
Correct.
employees,
Yeah,
maybe a client comes in and goes.
the other thing about downtown service is CDOT almost will require that we don't have an entrance
Yeah, no curb
off
cuts,
of,
come in.
off of.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to come off a list.
From the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think staff.
Stuff like that.
They definitely, I mean,
3 or 4 employees with all driving cars can be, that's a lot of traffic.
excuse me?
3 or 4 employees, you mentioned 3 or 4 employees and some clients. For me, 3 or 4 employees driving cars is a lot.
This is a lot.
I mean, it doesn't, unless it leaves less parking for clients. If,
Yeah,
if you have,
But a lot of people walk to work here.
yeah, that's true.
yeah, I think the parking requirements got reduced a few months ago. So I think in our proposal, it's like 5 spots on site, and then there's some street parking on South Elizabeth, something like that. I guess we'll see you guys next month.
Great. We look forward to it. Cool.
We'll be here.
Did you have any questions? Just watching? Nothing good on TV tonight?
Okay, I think we are moving on to our last item, which is the master plan review process. I just added process.
it is a process. Thank you for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
This is a little bit of the kickoff to a master plan review, so I just want to go over a few things, and mostly we're just focusing on process and timeline. So 2019 was 6 years ago. I know it's wild to think about, but 6 years ago. And obviously life since COVID-19 is very different. We have new data and new development pressures, some of which we've seen here tonight. And then Joel also has, that's the Department of Local Affairs, because I know we don't like acronyms in this room. The state has some requirements for comprehensive plan elements, including a water supply element and a strategic growth element. There's also a requirement for like recreation and tourism that don't have the same deadline, but there's new requirements. So I just wanted to go over some of the basics, really. You know, what is a master plan? I think we all know, because some of you were even involved in the process. But for anyone that doesn't, and because it's being recorded, a master plan or a comprehensive plan is a guiding document for accomplishing community aspirations. And it articulates goals and objectives. It also recommends actions that will help guide the community's future growth, development of land, public facilities, and service improvements. And also its environmental protection plans. There's a lot of different elements that can be included in a master plan. We have a really robust master plan. I think it's also very approachable when considering a lot of other communities' master plans. So good for you guys. Good job. Why do we have a master plan? We wanted to add some parameters to decision-making and to keep shared community values kind of in the forefront of decision-making and decisions that affect the community. And then also to consolidate and organize the many foundational plans and guidance reports that the town's completed. So there's a lot of like piecemeal things that have been done. Those seem to have all been integrated into the 2019 master plan, which is awesome. And then a master plan review is not an update, but it's kind of the first step to ensuring that the document is staying current, relevant, it's representative of the community and its goals as things change. And it's also an opportunity to evaluate the document and identify any suitable updates. So updates aren't planned for 2025, but they would be on the docket for 2026, especially to meet those dollar requirements. But I think there's some things that we can just shift slightly in there. So just a little background, I know a lot of you were involved in either like the steering committee or you're on the planning commission or town council at the time. So you probably participated in some of the surveys or public outreach events going on in 2018 and 2019.
Can we have a show of hands of who worked on the master plan steering committee? You?
We're not in committees, but I'm working on that.
Did you, Bill?
I participated, but
Okay, I wasn't, I did not.
was not on committees.
Okay, thanks. I just wondered.
Here's a slide with some acknowledgements that show some of your names, which is great. Anyways.
They're very small, like.
So that stuff took place in like 2018, 2019. It resulted in a really nice master plan. And yeah, I guess I'll just kind of.
Oh, could you go back for a minute?
Sure.
I can't read that.
We've got Bill on there.
Oh,
We
wow,
have
it's
Jennifer on
a
there.
lot, quite a few of the same
We have
people.
John on there.
Yeah, Doug was here when I was here. Who's that? Eliza Hunter? With Alan Hunter? What does that say? Alan Hunter.
Yeah, she
Ellen
was,
Hunter, yeah.
she was chair at the time.
Oh.
No, it was his Doug was chair.
Yeah.
Ellen was still.
Huh, okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Is Alan sitting here?
So process and timeline is kind of what I want to focus on. So the goals, we want to identify changes in the community, identify areas for improvement in the master plan, and then also identify missing plan elements, which will form the basis for 2026 updates. So we plan for this review to span a few months. We'll kind of assign sections of the plan for individual review. So we're going to split it into just more manageable chunks and assign them to you. And then you can review them on your own schedule. You can jump around, you can make notes. At the same time, CPS and I will be conducting a planner's assessment of the same section. So we're gonna pinpoint just various needs that jump out to us, so we can bring our perspectives together and do a group review at the next meeting. So following any assignment, we would do the group review at the next month's meeting.
When does this start?
Immediately.
Right now?
I do have an assignment in here for you. Please let me know if it seems like it's not manageable, or if we wanna push it a month, whatever is
All right.
fine.
That answers my question.
What'd
you say?
So anyways.
Sorry. Homework.
Basically, it's a funnel sort of situation. Individual commissioner review, planner assessment happen concurrently, then we do a group review together. And then that leads to our updates. So here's what we came up with. This is the table of contents, and it's split up by meeting dates. So the March meeting would mean that the introduction.
Can't read
section-
that.
Well, I gave you the table of contents in your packet. If that helps, and I'll just be assigning it as we go, so
Okay, so each chunk is a month.
sorta, okay, yeah.
Yeah, she's got
No,
the
it's-
timeline on page 3.
Oh, I see.
The April is 3 chunks.
The April is 3 chunks,
I am out of the country in April.
okay.
It's
You want some
okay.
reading material?
So you can read your dance and carry it on.
You'll have to work extra hard in March if we need to go
I
away.
can do it in March, but
No, that's fine, I think, in the staff report, I just mentioned like, the timeline we can mess with, we can be very,
it's
flexible
good
here.
plain work. It can.
And this is on the website.
So-
Give it to me in
The
March.
existing-
I'll do it.
Yeah.
But not.
That's what we're reading, the existing one,
Yeah, this is the existing table.
which is on the town website, so we can start reading now. We can read the whole thing in February.
Here's your assignment. You can, yeah, if you want, but then there's maybe some gaps in like the time from when you review it and when we discuss it in group review. So I'm flexible with how we want to do this, but what I just am proposing is that we review part 1, which is the introduction, it's only 16 pages. And then the appendix is the community profile document in it. That's
72 pages.
How many
72
pages? 72 pages.
but it's so many graphs.
Yeah.
And it's also very interesting, and I'm also going to say you don't have to really dig in, it's just like, do a quick scan, because it'll be interesting for you to see what the data was in 2016.
What is that little T-Rex all about?
This is a QR code.
So are you sending us this packet so that we can do
Yeah, the
this?
PowerPoint, does the PowerPoint always get to you guys?
No.
It doesn't?
That's what
Okay.
I did. We got
So
the
you want
table
me
of
to send-
contents, but
You want me to send all the PowerPoints?
Or just.
Yes,
simply-
please.
Just simply, yeah,
Wow, we gotta get reading here, Darla.
maybe that's Darla in the keynote.
Maybe.
I think that starting with these 2 is just where we should start. If we don't get to it,
No, just tell everybody they need to do it.
if we don't get to it in March, it's okay, we'll push everything, but,
No.
yeah, I think that this is a good place to start. I don't know if TJ would.
So 88 pages, we have a month to read 88 pages, and a lot of it's graphs.
A lot of it's graphs and photos and. I actually really like that.
I'm ready, I'm ready
Yeah.
to do it.
Here's the other thing, I'm actually hoping for your notes by March 3rd.
Whoa.
So
Well, it
now
says
we have
March
2
fifth
weeks.
here.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Okay, March 5th, it's not quite a month. Yeah, so if that's unmanageable, I get it. But we wouldn't be able to do a group review at the March meeting if I didn't get your notes by March 5th.
How about the 10th?
Maybe.
That's what, to 5 days, 10 days from now?
Today's the 20, or the 19th. And it's a short month.
Huh,
Yeah, leap year.
perfect.
But I was
I
gonna.
think
It's like 15.
I think the 10th is fair.
The
I
10th.
mean, did you say the 10th? Yeah,
I
the 10th
said
would be.
the 10th.
Or even the 7th. The 7th is Friday.
Okay,
10,
The 7th.
10. I was gonna take a few.
Well,
days off.
probably you're not gonna do it on the weekend, so if you gave us till the 10th, that would give us the weekend. He's had
our
it
next meeting,
Government mule.
our next meeting is March 19th.
Yeah,
So the 10th is totally fine with me.
okay.
Okay, yeah, let's make it.
Your packet, your staff report and your packet might not be super robust, but I'll cover whatever we need to cover in the group review in the meeting.
So the email's gonna include a link into the, well, I mean, we can all get to the master plan. But, and, all right, you just want us to review it,
Review it, take notes.
take notes, make
Send any
comments.
notes to me. Yeah,
Okay.
if you don't have anything that you feel like you
No, just
want to discuss in
PowerPoint.
the group review, I'll come with things.
Introduction.
We're gonna do our planning assessment at the same time, so
Okay.
I'll be ready to
Right there.
point things out to you, so it's okay if your comments are non-existent for a certain section, or if you think it's, you know,
Got it.
solid, because your master plan is very solid.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's really all I have.
Gee,
That's all.
thanks, that's all of us. Wait,
Yeah.
go back.
I like the way you snuck in this thesis at the last of the meeting.
Yeah, it's on the strategic plan, so it's gotta happen in 2025. Making it happen.
We believe you.
Government mule.
Bye.
See you next time.
Bye.
Right.
Send notes by March 10th or before.
Yeah, or before, if you get through it sooner, just let me know. And then if you don't send notes and we're in group review and there's something you wanna talk about, just bring it up. It's totally fine. But if you want me to review what you want me to review,
This is
Okay.
good, because I'm always like, oh, everything takes forever. We have to always revisit it and go over it and then, so now it's like, oh, okay, we'll get to work then, if you don't want to do that.
But we're also shy.
So
And we.
I just asked that you send us a reminder by email of all this stuff,
okay,
Yeah,
including the PowerPoint.
yeah,
I'll update the date in here too.
Great.
Just say March 10th.
yeah.
Does the staff have to read it too?
The staff's got it memorized.
We do want the PowerPoint. Please,
Yeah.
Julie, yeah.
Okay,
Anything else?
Don't ask her.
We hesitate to ask.
agenda item number 5
I
is
think you have.
updates for planning.
Last month.
Do we have any update
We
from the
don't.
planning commission, John?
Sorry, we don't have minutes from the last meeting quite yet, so that's why I didn't make it on this agenda. Wow, I feel so rude. I didn't introduce Julie.
I kind of,
They
except
did,
for,
they did.
for Bill,
Yes,
I
we
have not
did.
introduced.
Oh,
Could you do that officially?
yeah, but I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Oh, it's Hune. It's
Hune.
like, think of Hewn.
Oh, like Sam
Hewen.
Hewen? Sam Hewen, the guy from Outlander?
No,
So, sorry,
it's spelled Huun.
Wow.
so Julie is going to be taking the minutes moving forward and Karen's obviously retiring. We'll just do the review of the minutes from last meeting and this meeting at the next one.
Okay, and to remind everyone that Karen and Mike Gill's retirement party is Saturday at the Lazy Dog, starting at 5:30.
I think so.
Starting kind of
5:30
early, so all you people that don't
Lazy-
go out late at night, you can make a show with me at home.
I'll take it that and say.
I'm gone, but
They think of that.
TJ's gonna be there too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I just wanna,
More like 5 o'clock.
They should-
publicly acknowledge Karen's work. She was here before I started. How many
Karen
years?
started in 2008. She actually replaced me when I left the town.
Wow,
Yeah.
2008. So welcome. Hopefully you can be with us that long.
I
At
hope so.
least.
I hope so. I really am enjoying it so far.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You're not running out of here screaming.
Your first day.
We'll wear it.
Before she came.
First day.
Nice. So that's why you guys hired her.
That's impressive. Very impressive.
Like I said, it's a great document.
it is,
It is
It's-
very good.
you know, what I remember is that when it was done, everybody that came and participated loved the fact that they were there. And then when it was done collectively, everybody was so proud of it.
They felt seen.
They felt
And
seen
heard.
and heard and
Heard, yeah.
participated.
Yeah.
And they could all read a page and see where their thoughts were represented.
Beautiful.
I thought it was amazing. And John, can we get that poet again?
Can we get the poet again?
Yes,
I don't know why not.
he was
Somehow,
amazing.
He was good. Yep.
You know what, I thought, just to add my little bit, when I read it, I thought how neatly the values of the town were portrayed in that document. I thought that was really neat.
The only thing we were missing is we tried to get more involvement from the ranching community and they didn't participate. And we all agree, everybody was like, we wish there were more of them at the table.
It's always been an issue. It's, they work around the clock, so they don't come to meetings.
But we always wanted.
But I keep trying to, over many years, I've tried to say, look, we can't represent you. You need to represent yourself.
Yeah.
We don't know what, we don't live in your shoes. So if you
When your
want to.
chickens are frozen at 5 o'clock in the morning, what do you need?
So, but it's hard because they literally live a different lifestyle and going to meetings is the last thing they want to do.
Yeah.
So it's always been a challenge. But I can say I've had numerous people who, many of which are, well, at least some of which have been here for many years now, have said that they came to Ridgway because they read either our master plan or just our mission and values are the basic statements about what we believe in, and said, that's a town I want to live. So it's pretty cool.
And we're fighting really hard to keep it.
Well, I came because I was a big kid, so.
Hey, TJ, thanks for being there. Calling him out, he might not even be listening.
Oh, I'm here. Very good.
Thanks,
Very good.
TJ.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, good discussion this evening, and I'm excited to see you all on this weekend.
Yeah, thanks that's
Yeah,
good that you're coming.
Cool.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And like I told you, how they were, Angie.
Everybody has to buy TJ a drink.
Okay,
Oh, boy.
he's not gonna be walking.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know that I like that idea.
You can have my drink tickets.
Somebody can have
TJ.
All right.
I guess that's it. That's a wrap, people. Thank you.
No other updates?
No, we got no updates,
I had an update, but the deal fell apart.
right?
Thank you.
Jennifer, at the moment.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Nothing to. I think I'm tired because I got a little